All right, so back to our Vidly application. So far, we have built these API endpoints so we can manage genres, movies, customers, and rentals. Now, nearly all applications out there require some kind of authentication and authorization. So in this section, we're going to take this application to the next level and implement authentication and authorization. Now, before we go any further, I want to make sure that we are on the same page. So, authentication is the process of identifying if the user is who they claim they are. That's when we log in. So we send our username and password to the server, and the server authenticates us. Authorization is determining if the user has the right permission to perform the given operation. So in our Vidly application, we want to make sure that only authenticated users or only logged in users can perform operations that modify data. So if the user is anonymous, if they're not logged in, they can only read data from these endpoints. If they want to create a new genre or update a movie, they have to be authenticated first. Now, as an additional security, we want to make sure that only admin users can delete data. So that's a second level of authorization. We're talking about permissions here. So these are the requirements we're going to implement in this section. So to do this, we need to add two new endpoints to our application. First, we should be able to register users. For that, we're going to send a post request to /API/users. Because with post, we create a new resource, in this case, a new user. We should also be able to log in a user, and that's used for authentication. Now, here's a question for you. What HTTP method should we use to implement login? Because with login, we are not creating a new resource, we are not updating or removing an existing one. So how can we implement this in RESTful terms? This is one of those scenarios that you may encounter frequently in real-world applications. Sometimes the operation you're dealing with doesn't have that create, read, update, delete semantic. The way we model this in RESTful terms is by referring to this as a request or command. So we're creating a new login request or a login command. In that case, we'll use post because we're creating a new resource. So /API/logins. Now in your application, maybe you want to store all the logins into the application in a separate collection in MongoDB. So you can see using post makes perfect sense here. But even if you don't store individual logins and you just want to validate the user and password, you can still treat this resource as login resource and use post to create it. Now here's an exercise for you. I want you to implement this API to register new users. So for each user, we want to have these properties: name, email, and password. Also, when defining your schema, for the email property in the schema type object, set the unique property to true. So when we define the schema, we set the type of email to an object, that's our schema type object. We set the type here to string and also set unique to true. So with this, we ensure that we will not store two documents with the same email in MongoDB. Okay, so go ahead and implement only this API to register new users. I'm going to do the same in the next lecture.